This is Jerry Lynn, and I'm going to create a sensation mongering at InYourHeadOnline.com.
All right, we are back, and we're joined by Rob Van Dam, RVD. Welcome in your head.
Thanks, man. Good to be in your head, I guess. Glad to be on the show, man. Thanks for helping me get the word out on RVD TV. It's a big project I've been working out that I'm real proud of, that everybody's enjoying, so I want everyone to see it. So let's talk about that and whatever else the hell you want to talk about.
Let everybody know they could check that out at robvandam.com, and just want to give everybody what the basics of RVD TV is.
Absolutely. As everyone pretty much knows by now, I finished my contract with WWE in June, and I chose not to re-sign in favor of taking an indefinite break. My path made a definite right turn, and it went somewhere different. And, I was burnt out with wrestling. I felt like my job became like meaningless for me. I was traveling from town to town to town every day, always going somewhere I didn't want to be. I was always homesick. And, there's just so much more to me, there's so much more to my life, so much more I want to put energy into, and that I enjoy. And basically RVD TV captures all that. We started shooting it in July, right when I got off the road. And you get to know the real me, which is important. When I do all these interviews, a lot of interviewers are shocked at how candid and open I am, and I'm unfiltered. I'm genuine. That's something I'm very proud of, and I'm honest. And that also makes it harder to be to hold a job. Where I have to try to tell you guys that my world championship match this weekend is the most important thing to me. It's not. Matter of fact, it became so low on the priority list that that I hit the exit and I left there. But when you check out RVD TV, you're going to see the real me. I also have a lot of guests that are also celebrities, and you're going to see the real them too. It's real life. It's real genuine. It's not rehearsed. There's no skits. It's not contrived. If I'm walking down Hollywood Boulevard, you see an actor come up and say, RVD, like in Venice Beach. This actor, Stephen Daniels, comes up, RVD, remember me, dude? We were in City Guys together, an NBC sitcom we did almost 10 years ago, and that was just on the spot. It's real life. I got Sin Dog from Cypress Hill, Taboo from Black Eyed Peas. I got wrestlers like Chris Masters and Samoa Joe on there. I got Justin McCauley. I got UFC fighters like Kendall Groves and Rude Boy and Tito Ortiz. I got actors like Jay Moore, Nikki Cox. So that's always going to be a big part of RVD TV because I live here and I do a lot of appearances at conventions and autographs where I network with a lot of people who have their own fan bases. So that's something that I'm going to be sharing as well. Yeah. It's mission driven, man. But people that know the real me, like my wife, my family, they consider me a guru. I'm always helping people keep their energy up. I can help people with spiritual awareness, counseling for relationships, you name it. I'm a real guy. I've got a lot to offer.
We got a caller here. We got Brian on the line.
Oh, hi. Is this RVD?
Yeah. What's up, Brian?
Oh, hi. How you doing? My question for you was back about 8 years ago when you were in that X-Files episode, Fight Club. It's just a few questions I had about that. One, were you a fan of the show? Is that how you got on it, or did they just offer you the spot for that?
Well, you're probably not going to like my answer because since you saw that, you're probably an X-Files fan. You're probably hoping that I'm a fan of the show, too. And actually, that's the only X-Files episode I've ever seen.
And I heard that David Duchovny is a jerk in real life. I didn't know if that was true or not, if you actually had any interaction with him.
Very little interaction, like I met him, shook his hand, he was on the set, the girl was on the set. Also, Kathy Griffith was
she was on that show, too.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of hers. And working with Randall Tex Cobb, wow, that guy is a character. It was a great experience. That came to me through my agent, so that was a booking that I got because I live here in Los Angeles, and I do stuff like that. But no, from personal experience, everybody was cool.
Is it like harder to do a match when it's like for television rather than like an actual match like in front of people?
Oh, extremely hard because people don't understand how difficult wrestling is. So if I was wrestling another wrestler, it would have been fine. Randall Tex Cobb isn't a wrestler, and he doesn't understand how to do things. So I was in charge of choreographing the action, which was really cool. But part of the challenge was that I had to put myself into a Boston Crab because I couldn't get him to understand to just grab my legs and to step over without letting go of my legs. I couldn't get him to understand that, so I had to be flexible, get down there on my stomach, arch my back, and feed him my legs, you know, to hold for the shot.
Was it easier with the fact that...
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, was it easier with the fact that you could just, you know, do it again if something didn't go right because you're not actually in front of a live audience?
Oh, of course. Oh, of course, dude. If there was some outtakes from that, man, there was there was some good outtakes. There was one scene where we're wrestling. He has me in this hold, and he looks up, and he sees his twin brother in the crowd, you know. And,
I remember that.
Remember that? Yeah, and it drives him crazy or something. And so he's like supposed to dive out of the ring, you know, he's trying to go get the guy. When we did this rehearsal, you know, the stunt guy said, make sure when he dives, you know, that you grab his leg and you hold him in, you know, make it look good. I said, okay, cool. This is rehearsal without the camera, so I wasn't thinking we were going 100%. They said action. Randall Tex Cobb dove through those ropes thinking that I was going to catch his leg, and I couldn't have caught him if I wanted to. He was so quick, and it was great because his feet got caught on the ropes. His head hit this gurney that was down there, you know, that that they use to wheel you away when you're injured. His head hit that and knocked it over. He got color. His forehead was bleeding. It was awesome. He said, I thought you were going to catch me. Thanks a lot.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I appreciate you taking my call, but thank you very much. Thank you.
Right on.
What's going in, man? Oh, we also got the Flea here on the line.
Yep, it's true.
Sorry, you're on there with RVD. You got a question?
Yeah. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good. I was wondering if there was ever any move that you wanted to do but was just too crazy. You couldn't find anyone willing to take it.
Nothing comes to mind that really fits that. A lot of the moves that I've done, you know, I have to first know that I can do them. And, you know, there are several moves like that I could picture them in my head and visualize, but not quite all the way. You know, it's always been important to me to be different and to stand out, and my moves is one way I did that. Before I ever had my first match, I came up with the split-legged moonsault, and I was trying to think of things that I hadn't seen. So, you know, one move like that, for instance, you know, ended up being the 360 actually it's a 180 into a split-leg moonsault, which I have pulled off several times in ECW. That's a challenging one. I'm standing on the second rope with my back to the corner, jump up high enough to clear the top rope, spin 180 degrees, then drop in the split, hit the moonsault. I did that with Jerry Lynn in ECW. I did that with Sabu. And it's something that I saved for real special occasions because the risk factor was so high. One move that was even a little more challenging than that I actually never pulled off was a 720-degree spin kick. I could visualize it, you know, like ice skaters can go up and they spin around like 3 times in the air, and I could imagine it, you know, and just come in with that kick, and I would try that, not hitting somebody, but just trying to spin around twice and land with one leg extended. I was just about there. Recently at Venice Beach, I saw one of those capoeira dancers nail it beautifully, like effortlessly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thanks a lot. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Did you ever see anybody like, you know, maybe like a newer guy do a move and you're just like, man, I wish I would have thought of that?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think of what it was. That definitely has happened. I can't think right now of what it was. It's something that one of the guys in WWE did, I believe, and that's exactly what I said. I saw him do the move, and I was like, damn, I wish I could, you know, I wish I would have thought of that. And I wish I could tell you what move. I'm going to be thinking about that while I'm answering the other questions now, so if I come up with it, I'll spit it out. But
all right.
Thing is, a lot of wrestlers
just thrown out here. We'll understand what you're talking about.
Right? Yeah, I'll blurt it out like a Tourette. But you know, the thing about wrestlers, most of them, they're not going to care that somebody else came up with it. They're going to do it anyway. You know what I mean? I could never understand that. I don't want to do moves that are, you know, really cool and try and take the credit, you know, at the moment for it when everyone knows, hey, wait a second, Didn't so-and-so used to do that move before he just got, he got released last month, and that's kind of how they do it. Obviously, I don't.
Yeah. Speaking like that, did you ever, was it ever upset you when, Shane was doing the Van Terminator?
Upset is a strong word. That never happened, but at the same time, it was kind of a little bit, it was kind of a little bit like, Paul went there and showed him a video of me doing the Van Terminator. I wasn't working with WWE, so Paul thought it'd be a great way to get himself ahead, I guess, and to bring that move to the big stage. He said, "You think you can do this?" And so Shano did it. So while I was there, Shano suggested he and I tagging, doing a double, coast to coast, across the ring and stuff, No, I don't get upset, it's amazing to me that my moves can still stand out as being original because wrestling's been around for so many years. There's only 4 sides to a ring, except TNA. And, 2 arms and 2 legs on almost every wrestler. So it's amazing to me that I'm able to come up with stuff that we haven't seen.
Yeah,
someone steals it. That's, I guess, to be expected.
Did you have anything else, Flea? I don't know if he even knows he's still on the line. Well, anyway, thanks for calling in there, Flea. I think we got LTNA fan here. He's calling in from Portugal.
Yes, I am. Hello there, RVD.
Hello to you in Portugal.
How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for asking.
Okay. I have a question. My first question is, you've been working pretty much everywhere, Europe, Japan, America, where you made most of your career. Is there any company inside of America or outside of it that you would like to work but you haven't worked yet?
I don't think so. I honestly, outside of the WWE, I kind of feel like working for any other company would be a step downward. A lot of people ask me right now, because I'm not under contract, I'm completely open. They ask when I return to wrestling, would I consider TNA? Would I consider this group? I would consider anything, but what I'm going to be weighing out would be a lighter schedule versus the prestige of wrestling and working for the WWE. Mm-hmm. Honestly, their superstars are so high above, the standard compared to anything else. And I would love to see some of the other groups come up and maybe try and be competition. But really, to me, from my perspective, WWE is like Coca-Cola or like McDonald's or something like that. It's like it's known around the entire planet as a successful brand. So that would be a lot to give up, At the same time, right now, I don't see me returning to a full-time schedule either. So I'm definitely not ready to make that call yet. When it comes to traveling, I've always hated it, especially for the last several years. I loathe flying, which is what I need a break from. However, when I'm on a much lighter schedule and I'm able to go somewhere cool, anywhere, like in Europe or England, or actually since I've been done with WWE, I've gone to England, I've gone to Australia, I've gone to New Zealand. They were very nice trips because I was able to bring my wife with me and we were able to hang out and see a little bit. So, as long as there's something like that in it for me, then that's something to weigh out also.
We were talking about outside of America, would you consider, for instance, returning to Japan and working for All Japan or something?
I would consider it. As a matter of fact, I had been talking to them about this big show they got coming up March 1st. And really, it wasn't just something that we were able to make happen. Being in the position that I'm in, I'm really not looking to take bookings. I'm really not looking to jump on an airplane. I'm really trying to avoid that, and I'm still staying home because that's just the stage that I'm at right now, and that's kind of like the path that I'm on right now, is spending more time inside me instead of spreading myself out all over the world. However, speaking with All Japan, a bunch of the guys called me, and it's Dory Funk's retirement tour, I believe. So I started talking to him. And also I heard from Booker T that New Japan, had wanted to know if I'd be interested in going and wrestling Booker, and so, like I said, anything would be considered an option, but really it would take a lot more to get me out of my house right now than a lot of promoters would probably expect.
I wouldn't personally mind having the Great Muta as my boss, but that's just me. But can I just ask one more question before I go?
Yes, but I don't think anything can ever replace having Giant Baba as a boss. That was
awesome. No, yeah. So of course, the greatest promoter of all time, in my opinion. Just one more question. Were you ever, for instance, you were wrestling against a younger wrestler, and he suggested a spot? Did you ever, for instance, decided he was suggesting a spot? It was very dangerous spot, and was it ever? Did you refuse to do that spot? Did you ever, was it ever suggested to you a spot so dangerous that you simply refused to do that spot in your career?
Yes, but so many different ideas popped into my head with that question. First, I was wondering if you were talking about when I was wrestling somebody young and they wanted to do something, in which case I thought of a match a long time ago when I was wrestling this guy that during the match, real quick, this was back on the indie scene when you don't know what you're going to get. There's no, there's not a guaranteed quality of workers. But anyway, the guy ended up, he was talking real big, like he'd been everywhere and stuff. But I knew right away off the bat the guy had no idea what he was doing. And he ended up doing something that was ridiculous. He tried to put me over his knee and spank me. And so I just hooked his waist. I went behind him and I gave him a German suplex and dropped him on the back of his head. And that ended the match. It didn't have to. It could have just been enough to let him know, hey dude, this ain't how it's going down. But it was, he wasn't getting up. He stayed down. And then I thought maybe you were going to ask about when I was young and I didn't know any better. And I thought of my first match in Jamaica. When I was 21 years old, I wrestled Mark Starr, and I did something during the match because I was young and green. I did something that upset him. I don't know what it was, but he took that moment and decided to beat me up. And it's strange when you're young because you're trained to feed your body. What, dude?
Sorry, I was just telling the caller to cut down on whatever noise he's doing there. Go on, sorry.
No, it's not me. It's somebody else.
Yeah, I know. It's the other caller. Go on, sorry.
Okay. Well, anyway, it brought up a memory of when I took 3 power bombs in a row from Mark Starr, and I was so young. I'd only been wrestling 2 years, and I'll be damned if every time I wasn't feeding up, putting my head between his legs and taking that. And it's like, what do? You don't know. You're confused. Is it the right thing? It takes a long, long time to know. And at the time, I just thought he was totally such a dick for doing that. Now when I look back, I understand why he did it, but he was still a dick for doing it. Right. Because I wouldn't do that to a young guy, if someone's taking a chance during the match, something that's where it's dangerous because he's reckless or he doesn't have control or whatever, then there's ways, to stop them and snuff them down and whatever. But the 3 power bombs in a row, I didn't know, so I did a backflip off the ring, and was he upset? Oh, he was so upset. But now, more recently, as far as suggesting things that I couldn't do, you'd be surprised at what those guys, they think that I'm Superman up there in WWE. They've never understood me, and they watch my matches, and they say, all I know is you're doing all these kinds of things that I could never even dream of. So then there's no limit. There's no limit to imagination. One time, the one-legged kick I do off the top rope, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I jump into the ring, way across the ring, I do one-legged side kick, pow, and I kick the guy, right? Arn Anderson was asking, could I do that from the top rope to the floor? I said, wait a second, you want me to stay on the top rope and then jump out and on my way down to the cement to deliver that kick before I hit the ground?
That would be good for the knees.
And yeah, exactly. And this was after I just came back from knee surgery and stuff. And I said, Arn, I can't pull that off. And he looked at me and he wasn't disappointed. He was just shocked. And he said, no, Rob. He goes, no, that's fine. He goes, but the thing is, as surprised as you are that I was asking you about this, he goes, we all talked about it and without you, and there wasn't a damn one of us that didn't think you could do it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you can't get mad about that.
Yeah, it's all good, but no, that's how suggestions came across there. If it wasn't my idea, it was always just brought up what do you think about this? There was never any pressure. It's really not like that. It wasn't for me, and the more the more in charge you are of your own business, and the more control you have, and that's something about being a man, really.
Did you have anything else there?
No, I'd just like to thank you for answering my questions, Mr. Rob Van Dam. See you. Goodbye.
Right on, man. Enjoy Portugal.
I do. Thank you.
Okay.
I think we got another caller here, too. Who is this?
This is Dwayne.
Hey, Dwayne, you got a question for RVD?
Yeah, I have two, if that's straight.
What up, Dwayne?
The first question I have is, are you a member of Normal?
I'm not an official member, meaning like I support everything that Normal does, but I'm a heavily supporter of MPP, which is the Marijuana Policy Project. Normal is a lot more well known, and they seem more oriented on education, which is important. The MPP is the only group that actually has lobbyists in Washington, and actually is making a difference. It's MPP that started the state initiatives of legalizing marijuana in 1996 right here in California, and they've been responsible for every one of the 12 states that we picked up and that today legalize it, and there's about 5 more on the horizon. So I support everything that Normal does, and I don't think I'm a contributing member.
All right, well, that's good to know. My other question is, how do you feel about people stealing the Van Terminator?
We already answered that one. It's hard to come up with a move that's different than everybody else. And when you do, you got to expect, you don't put a patent on a wrestling move. So they're going to either make a little variation or else they'll just take the whole thing. I'm more surprised that people haven't stolen a lot more of my moves, I mean, in my whole career, I've only seen like maybe Sabu and Rey Mysterio do the split-legged moonsault. I'm surprised a lot more guys haven't stolen that. The Van Daminator, a lot of it takes talent, but a lot of my moves I'm sure other people can pull off. And I figured the longer I'm gone, the more we'll see them stolen.
All right.
Well, thanks.
Jimmy Yang.
Thanks
for taking my call.
Right on, dude.
All right, let's got James here on the line.
Hey guys, it's James Orangecorn. Hey RVD, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Hey, thanks, James.
Hey, I'm a big fan from Rockford, Illinois. I just want to say I met you in 2002 when you came here for autograph signing at Best Buy, and you were really, really cool. You signed a bunch of autographs and took the time to talk to me and everything. I want to thank you for that.
I appreciate that.
And I wanted to say I was surprised. I was at the store, and I'd seen, actually at the same store at Best Buy not too long ago, RVD DVD, and I didn't know they actually made an official DVD for you, and I was really happy to pick it up, and I really enjoy it. And I noticed, there's a music video on there for your theme song, One of a Kind.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if it was fun making that music video, and if there was any plans on maybe using that video on a TV show or a music video station or anything like that.
Making the video to One of a Kind ended up probably being too fun. And what I mean by that is this is at everybody else's expense. I just decided it was fun no matter what. The director tells me that I'm going to come in and then I'm going to sit down at the table that these people are at. This is all on camera, and I'm going to be talking to them, asking them if that's their car out in the parking lot, but the microphone's not going to be picking it up. There's going to be music, so really I'm just going to sit there, and I'm going to be acting like I'm talking to them or whatever. And I just thought, well, that's okay. The camera's way on the other side of the room. Okay, I didn't know these guys. I just met them. But I came in, on action. I came in, I sat down, I looked at these guys, and I'm like, did you guys try the bologna for lunch? And they just looked at me. They didn't even know how to react. And the camera didn't pick it up. And they said, okay, here, we just kept going. I said, okay, here, let's do it again. And then next time I came out, and they said action. I came in and I sat down, and I just said something else, something random that made absolutely no sense at all. I just sat down. I sat down looking at them, and I'm like, hey, do you guys ever watch 2.5 Men on television? and they're trying not to laugh because the camera's behind me and it's getting their facial reactions to whatever the hell I'm saying. So it basically became so much fun. I was just pranking them, and after about the 5th or 6th time they reversed it, and I started doing it back to me. So that's what I'll always think about when I watch that video, is thinking about wondering if you can tell that we're just goofing around the whole time.
Yeah, it looked like you guys had a lot of fun. That was pretty cool.
Right on. And of course there was the time when I suggested that I throw the keys up and do an inward crescent kick and kick him out and have the guy catch him in his hand, across a few cars. And they said, can you really do that? I said, yeah, I'll just do it like this. And I threw it up and I kicked it as I'm demonstrating, and the key shot across, bounced across this hood and scraped it, and everybody freaked out when they ran over there, to wax this sports car, the show car that I just scraped the keys across, and that was a pretty fun experience too.
Do you have anything else, James?
Oh, no, that was all. Thank you so much for taking my call, and I appreciate it, RVD. Thanks a lot. It was good talking to you.
Right on, dude. Check out RVD TV.
All right, I will, man. Have a good night.
You too.
It's at RobVanDam.com. When you do this, like the Rob Van Dam TV and these guys calling in saying like they met you and you did autographs and whatnot, and you grew up as a wrestling fan, do you kind of think like when you were a fan, what you would like to see from like the different stars, and maybe that's what like part of the reason why you'd want to do RVD TV, kind of something that you would have liked to see when you were a kid?
Well, I definitely approach my in-ring style that way. I always wanted to do moves that I would want to see if I had bought a ticket, to watch wrestling. And I appreciated that about some of the wrestlers when I grew up, even if they weren't winning matches, but they were doing more exciting moves. It was like they were working harder to entertain me, like Owen Hart, Brady Boone, Leaping Lanny Poffo. More of an inspiration for RVD TV was getting away from wrestling, and really, like, I don't know if you read my blogs or not, but anybody that reads my blogs on RobVanDam.com or MySpace.com/5starcomics, they're going to understand that I'm a lot different than what they thought I was. I don't change my persona to wrestle like a lot of wrestlers. You don't see me going from a cool, zenful, inner peace searching soul to I'm going to rip your head off and crap down your throat. I don't do that. I think WWE wanted that from me a lot, but that's not the real me. The real me likes to provoke thought and to think deep, and have intellectual conversations. This is part of my real life. I'm all the time talking to people about relationships, or, what do you think about God? What do you think about the Bible? It's ballsy to talk about this on camera. If a celebrity says they're for or against abortion, they could piss half of their fans off, And I always tell all my fans, I don't want you to agree with everything I say. I just want you to know we all have our own views, and I want you to grasp and to own your individuality. I stand out. Yes, I'm one of a kind. My music says it. My moves say it. My outfits say it. But we're all individuals. We're all created differently, and we all have our own paths and our own meanings. And I try to inspire people to grab a hold of that, and I try and get them to use their brain and think, Samoa Joe, Justin McCauley, and myself were on camera, and I said, guys, I want to talk about the fact that wrestlers die so young. What do you think? And then, wow, you just get the spontaneous, open gut reaction. You get to see how we really think, what our thoughts are, what our feelings are, because it's not researched, it's not rehearsed. It's a reoccurring episode called Friends in High Places. I attack language censorship, all kinds of issues. There's really like nothing that I won't talk about, and I do it with other famous people that have their own fan bases to help draw awareness to it. That's a big part of RVD TV. I also have my workouts on there. That's a big part of RVD TV. And just my genuine self interacting with everyday life, Venice Beach, Hollywood Boulevard. Sometimes we do like adventurous things because a new episode comes out every Friday at RobVanDam.com. So that is a lot of episodes in a year. That means there's going to be some variety. Justin McCauley said a few weeks ago, hey, let's go up and prank Team Punishment. They're training Kendall Groves for his upcoming UFC fight. Let's go prank him and get it all on camera. I said, okay. So we went up there, and we're coming up with the plan in the car on the way on camera. It ended up being a hit. It was so awesome. We had so much fun. Everybody had fun. We got a night vision camera, and we're stalking their cabin up there in the mountains. We got all these big MMA fighters inside, scared out of their boots. It was great. And Yeah, and a couple weeks ago, Jay Moore, who's, a comedian and actor on Ghost Whisperer, he was at the Improv here in L.A., and I called him. I said, Jay, I'm thinking about coming to see you. He said, you want to go on stage? I said, hell yeah. I went up and I did 10 minutes and opened up for Jay Moore. Got all of that on film for an upcoming RVD TV episode. There's a lot of variety, and it's something to keep up with.
Mm-hmm. Do you think your views on life in general, like your outspokenness, do you think that kind of held you back in WWE? Maybe they were anytime afraid to push you towards all the way to the top.
I've absolutely always felt that because I'm somebody that doesn't budge a whole lot when it comes to certain things. I don't compromise my principles. I'm a man of integrity, and I feel like I know enough to where I don't need somebody else telling me what I should be thinking. I take offense to that. I'm a stand-up guy, and because of that, because of the way that I choose to remain, I always felt like I would be capped. I could only get so high in WWE. I never thought I'd be world champion. I never saw that coming, and that was circumstantial for the launch of the new ECW, which was great. But honestly, to get ahead in WWE, the guys that make it to the top usually use a formula that involves politicking, it involves kissing ass, and when you can't rise up too high above anybody else, then you start holding everybody else down, and you cut their throats, and you stab them in the back, you take the writers out and smooze them and give them your ideas and tell them why they should do this with you, and hey, that's all good business. That's what that works. It works, but that's stuff that I won't do, and therefore, I figured I could always only get so high on the ascension, on the ladder in WWE, but that was okay with me. Because once I went through the curtains, it was all about me interacting with my fans. That exchange of energy couldn't be taken from me or from the fans. No matter what happened before I came through the curtains, it was all real and up to me at that point. And that's the one thing that I probably do miss a little.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up with that. Is that something that you miss? Is like the high from the crowd, or performing in front of the fans?
Sure, that's something, but I don't want to show everybody that I can do backflips anymore. Not in that same manner. There's other ways too. I've got a lot of projects on the table, and I'm working on a lot of projects right now. I got myself pretty spread out. A lot of it isn't really ready to be talked about yet, but it's stuff that is outside of wrestling. I still want to reach out to people. I still get energy from their support, their feedback, their love, but I want to reach out and inspire people to think, to be individuals. I want to be a motivational speaker someday. That's going to be something that I'm going to do. I'm not saying full time like that's what I'm going to switch to doing, but that is definitely in my path. And that's something I'm more excited about than returning to the ring. So, yeah, I miss that energy from the crowd and stuff, but after a while I felt like it was monotonous and meaningless to go out there every night and to do, spin kicks and backflips night after night after night after night after night. I appreciate that the fans didn't think of it the same way and that they would still come out and support. I just no longer understood why.
We get a call here. We got Mike on the line.
Hey, what's
up, Mike?
How you doing, man? It's an honor to talk to you. Thank you.
Right on, dude.
This question probably isn't the best one to ask after you just said you didn't want to show people you wanted to do backflips anymore, but it's directly related to backflips, so I just wanted to ask you anyways.
Sure.
I just wanted to I was just wondering, in your documentary, you mentioned that you did a backflip off your high school.
Right.
And it was to impress everyone. I was just wondering about how high up in the air feet do you think that was?
The roof that I did the backflip off of, I guess it was probably close to 9 or 10 feet maybe. It was high enough to where my buddies held their, I stood in my buddies' hands and they boosted me up so that I could grab the ledge and then pull myself up. I knew that I could land it. My comfort zone is a lot wider than a lot of other people's. Sometimes that's dangerous. Sometimes I feel like Superman, like everyone around me is vulnerable but me, but it's a hell of a curse. And I just, I used to argue with my principal. I used to say, wait a second. Now, if I can walk down the hallway on my hands just as good as you can on your feet, then why shouldn't I be allowed to do that? And I've had a hard time, understanding things like that my whole life. I'm a nonconformist. I don't really think I fit into, I don't think there can be just one set of rules and guidelines that fits everybody. Because as I've said, we're all individuals, That backflip, I knew I'd nail it. Bam! Half the school saw it. It was a perfect landing. They went and told the other half, and they came out and I had to do it again. So I got suspended for it and had to spend my lunch hours in the lunchroom for the rest of the school year after that. I wouldn't recommend it, but at the same time, I probably don't resent it. Probably don't regret it.
I'll try that.
Don't be trying that at home, Mike.
Nah, I don't think I could do it on my bed. Is it okay if I ask another question?
Sure. Well, it's hard for me. I don't know.
All right. Well, I was just wondering, did you ever wish to have, Fonzie with you when you came in to the WWE?
Yeah, a lot of times. He came in at the One Night Stand, the ECW pay-per-view, and I was pulling for him. Sabu was pulling for him. We were talking to the higher-ups about bringing him in. I don't know how deep the interest went, because at one point, he thought that there was a chance he might be working with us, and I don't know if that was everybody's thought or if there might have been someone all along that knew it wasn't going to happen, So, unfortunately, we didn't get to work with Fonzie, but I still hope that somehow, some way or another, that I'll work with him again in the future. I actually visited him when I was down in Florida over the last few months, and so I popped out the camera, said, say hi to RVD TV, Fonzie. You see him on the trailer. When you go to RobVanDam.com, the 3-minute trailer pops up. You see, Fonzie Daddy. You saw him, right?
Daddy.
Yeah.
I got to go check that out.
Yeah, you also see Samoa Joe on there, which is a pretty cool segment. Yeah, thanks for coming, Mike.
I also see who? You also see who?
Samoa Joe, who you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Samoa lives in Newport, which is not too far from me, and our mutual close friend is Justin McCauley, who's a mixed martial artist, and so a lot of times we work out together, so we hang out together, whatever. So that surprised a lot of people too.
Would that have been something you would have pursued, like if it would have been bigger, like when you started wrestling MMA?
No, if MMA would have been around when I was 18, there's no way you could have stopped me from it. There's no doubt about that. I was all about that. I was hungry to learn more, to fight better and better people, to gain experience, and I had a pretty solid one-track mind, so I have no doubt. And now I have all the respect in the world for it too. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Did you see Brock Lesnar's debut?
Of course. Of course. And I predicted that he was gonna win, that he was gonna squash Frank Mir. Props to Mir. That was a beautiful leg bar that he got him, and I've watched that over and over so many times in slow motion, and you can see him building up, going in for it, so much earlier, setting up for it. The guy's a technician, but the ref made a horrible call, stopping both guys, standing them up, and then deducting a point from Brock for hitting him in the back of the head. That was a bad call. Everybody that I've talked to agrees that was a bad call. And we don't know what would have happened had they not stopped the fight. We don't know. You can watch any of the fights leading up to that and see way many more hits to the back of the head. And maybe sometimes they get a warning. You don't stand them up. You don't take a point away. That was weird, and it totally saved and helped Mir at that moment, and I believe there's a damn good chance that might have changed the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Do you think some people who don't follow MMA and they see that Brock lost in like 98 seconds, whatever it is, and they say, oh, he's no good at it, they don't really just don't understand it?
Probably so, but if the people that didn't see it and are just reading about it, then who really they don't really qualify to give too many people their opinion anyway, so there's always going to be critics, and there's people now, saying the same thing, and the people wanted Brock to lose, they wanted him to lose when he tried out for football, they wanted to label him as a pro wrestler when in fact he only did that for like 3 or 4 years out of his whole life, that's how people label them. myself, people think me as a wrestler, which is fine. I think of myself as a wrestler too, but I happen to know that there's another 95% of me that people don't know, and I happen to believe there's probably a good chance that Brock or anybody else has other sides to them too. People like Ric Flair that truly want to be in the business their entire lives, or people that marry into the business and have their wives and their sons and their daughters and everybody working it. Well, their priorities are just like the same they are. That is the most important thing to them, and that's where all their energy is. Brock, he wrestled for a few years professionally. He was an amateur, great, state champion, national. Before that, he's been doing MMA, for a couple of years. So you can't underestimate the guy. And obviously, even though he fell to that awesome knee bar, he was looking pretty dominant.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Ric Flair. Do you still enjoy seeing him out there?
I never did.
Oh, you never? Well, okay. Do you still not enjoy seeing him out there? I guess.
It's he's working. I see him doing his thing. I see him doing the same thing he's done for a long time. I say, great for him for being so strong and healthy to be able to keep doing that. But honestly, I don't enjoy a lot of the things about wrestling that a lot of other fans and wrestlers that are fans do enjoy, and that's always made it difficult for me too. Or should I say challenging?
Right. A lot of people who called in tonight, they were asking about your different moves and stuff. But kind of along those lines, I always thought it was like you and Val Venus sold the DDT better than anybody, or like pile driver. Was that hard on your neck to kind of bounce off your head like that?
Well, it's just everything I do, I try and put everything into it. I'm out there to impress, to show off. People are paying to see me. I want to make sure they get their money's worth. So if you DDT me, I'm going to eat it. If you pile drive me, I'm going to eat it. If you whack me with a metal chair, I would like that thing to fold right over my head. Like when Balls Mahoney used to crack me with that chair back in the original ECW days, I knew that nobody was watching that saying, oh, I could do that. Hell no. People would watch, and they'd know that there's no way they would survive that. Because even though it's entertainment, it's an exhibition of your actual skills and talents, It's a showcasing, and that's what it is. So I'm out there to show, even though it's entertainment, I want to show a little bit of what I got. I obviously have endurance and speed and coordination and athleticism and acrobatics and toughness, And there's a lot, that you can deduct from watching a wrestling match, even though you never truly know exactly how somebody would fight if they were fighting to end the fight instead of to take 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of ECW, what do you think of the current ECW product?
Well, I'm not too impressed, when they brought it back with the old bait and switch, I was suckered in just like everybody, and I was fooled into thinking that the original ECW spirit was going to be carried on by us original ECW players. We'd recruit some new young guys to carry on the spirit. So when I learned that the idea was never to make it anything like the old ECW, because Vince didn't think anybody even remembered the old ECW, and then I realized it was just going to be a third brand that was going to be giving less attention than SmackDown and Raw, and held so much resentment from a lot of the boys and a lot of the agents that hate the original ECW, even though this is Vince's. I don't get it. I didn't get it. I still don't get it, and it's something that after a while I wasn't too crazy about being a part of. I definitely didn't want to be the endorser. I didn't want to be the poster boy for this new ECW, and I told the boss man that, and it was then that I said, okay, where's the exit?
Was it even more frustrating since the one night stand shows got over so well, kind of proved that if you just kind of had the ECW in the ECW arenas, places where the hardcore ECW fans were, it was still really over?
Well, of course, and it could have still been over in other arenas too. First off, they made the ECW wrestlers bad guys on Raw, which was ridiculous, by creating this angle between me and John Cena, where we were going to wrestle over that Money in the Bank challenge, and then Sabu and Balls and Sandman, Dreamer, they would all come in and jump John Cena or whatever, and I would tell Vince, look, you're making people that don't know ECW that are watching Raw obviously think the ECW guys are the heels right now. Why are you doing that? To try to build ECW. And you know, when we brought back the original One Night Stand, it was a huge success. The one next year was a huge success. And then before we launched the new TV show, we had a SmackDown versus ECW, and I wrestled Rey Mysterio, and everybody was telling me, oh my God, Rob, you were happy again. You could see it in your face. You were enjoying being there. You were having fun. And I was, because they were saying at the time, ECW means anything goes. And so I'd have the chair, I'd have dives out to the crowd, and I was able to really express myself as an artist the way that I wanted to be seen for the first time in like over 5 years, you know. So that was very exciting. So different cycles of frustration go from being excited and hopeful to being disappointed and ultimately void of any hope, you know. So yeah, just like everybody, I was disappointed to see it go downhill. And since they didn't want to revive or even keep that spirit going, they were never even trying to keep this the alternative product that it was. The old ECW was cool to watch even if you weren't a wrestling fan. You couldn't turn the channel because you were seeing crazy stuff happening, you know. The way Jay Moore put it, he said ECW. He goes, isn't that where there was like barbed wire all over? You got a cockfight in one corner over here, in the other corner you got a snuff film being made. He's right. I mean, it was crazy. It was hard to turn the channel away and.
Yeah, I mean, I remember.
Where they wanted to go with it.
Yeah, I remember the very first time I saw it on TV. It was used to show it here on the Spanish channel, and as soon as I watch it every week.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time, and Sabu was always telling me about it because I knew he was wrestling for this group up in Philly. I was down in Florida at the time, and starting my deal with All Japan, and I saw it one time on the Sunshine Network, flipped through the channels, and I seen Sabu. You know, and he's jumping from a chair in the middle of the ring up to the top rope in the middle, then out to like the third row in the crowd, and all the crowd is standing up and dancing together, you know, like they're in a rock and roll show or something. It was crazy. I'd never seen anything like it. And what Paul Heyman did was he brought a new alternative product and said, this is what wrestling could be. Because right now it's all whatever Vince is spoon feeding you. He says, this is what wrestling is because I say it is.
Right. Do you actually think part of the reason why they brought it back was to kind of take away the legacy and kind of take away the ECW chance?
Yes, I do. I think that because ECW stood for anti-WWE, anti-traditionalism, I think that it was a good stroke to the man's ego to bring it in and try to destroy that image, the whole time denying that anybody remembered the old ECW. I mean, this guy speaks from a huge self-centered perspective where when you ask him, Vince, why do you think they chant ECW when we do things out there if they don't remember it? And his honest response is, because I spent the last 5 years training them to chant ECW when they see something extreme. I mean, that's the guy you're talking to. That's his perspective. That's what he really thinks. You know, didn't we bring it back because the DVD sales were like through the roof? They were so good. Well, yes, I advertised them on my TV. People bought them. That's the way that he thinks, you know. Who's to tell him he's wrong, you know, for having a global brand, you know, but it sure isn't something that I think's cool.
We got Jason here on the line.
Yeah.
What up, Jason?
Well, I want to say something to Rob Van Dam, and I also have 2 questions for him, if that's cool, because I don't want to take up too much time, but this is a pretty big deal for me, so.
All right, get to him, man.
Okay, first off, when I didn't have any friends, when I was going through some hard times, I always had ECW. So, you know, long live the original ECW. I can't say enough about how great the original ECW was.
Right on. I'm with you.
So, just before I ask any questions, thank you so much for everything.
I appreciate that.
My first question is, would you ever wrestle Jerry Lynn one last time? Because you guys had great matches.
I would hope that could come to pass sometime down the road, you know. I wouldn't do it just to have the match. Like, for instance, if it was offered for us to do it next week, it wouldn't be something, you know, that would be wise to do. But I hope that the right circumstances and events and direction of our paths go in such a way that they do cross in the future. You know, Jerry has been my most competitive opponent that has brought out the most spirit of competition and best exhibition and showcasing of everything that I think a wrestling match should be, you know, as far as on my resume, you know. So definitely appreciate you bringing up the new effing show.
Was there talks sorry, Jason, was there talks of doing that match at the second One Night Stand? There was like a rumor online. I don't know if it was true or not.
I don't believe so, because, I mean, this one, you know, was for the World Championship. It had a long time coming in.
Yeah.
Money in the Bank. It had a long build-up going towards it. You know, I'm sure originally it was probably laid out on the table as a match that could happen, but obviously the whole show became about ECW taking over.
Mm-hmm. All right, go on, Jason. Sorry about that.
Oh, no. My other question is, do you think current relatively big-name guys like Samoa Joe, Low Key, Homicide, and CM Punk, do you think they would have worked out really well in the original ECW?
Yes. Yes, I do. I have no doubt about that. Paul Heyman's great at bringing out the strengths and hiding the weaknesses and making superstars out of guys who might otherwise be overlooked.
I'd love to see Homicide in ECW. Thanks for calling in, Jason.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate this.
Yeah. We also got El Santo here.
Hey, ¿qué pasa? Hey, man, I want to tell you something. I think I've seen you every time you came to New Orleans with ECW.
Right.
And,
yeah, we
know, man. I mean, yeah, you know, great, always great to watch in the ring. But I want to ask you like a non-wrestling question. I know you're a big comic book fan.
Yep.
And do you still read them? And what books you like to read? Because I'm a big fan also.
I'm not a regular Wednesday go out to the comic shop and get the new ones that came in this week reader anymore.
Right.
But I do still enjoy reading, and what I'll do now is like every couple months or so, I'll hit a comic store and I'll try and pick up everything that I might have missed, which a lot of times has me buying the same comic twice, but that's just a flaw in my system. I enjoy reading the trade paperbacks, and I read now I enjoy reading ones that aren't so superhero-y. I enjoy titles that are more for adults because I am an adult, and some of the Vertigo lines right now really are holding my interest. I'm a big fan of Brian Vaughan's stories, Ex Machina and Why the Last Man, both very high on my list. Brian Azzarello's book, 100 Bullets, is great, too. Problem with that is every time I buy a new trade paperback, I have to reread from the start to try to remember what's happening there. Ghost Rider is my longtime, lifelong favorite character, so I'll always support him to some extent, even if I don't really care for how the current writer is handling him. I grew up on Marvel, so that'll always hold my interest.
Good, cool. And one more question, if you don't mind. I know I haven't seen Chat. I'm a big Lucha Libre fan. You know, I watch AAA a lot and CMLL. And I've been seeing Sabu out there in AAA. I want to ask you, do you ever thought about going over there to Mexico, maybe to AAA or maybe in CMML or do like a little tour there or anything?
Way back in the day, Sabu and I were both going to go, I think this was probably in '96. We were going to go to AAA when Antonio Pena had the control down there, and right before we went, the peso crashed. And you know, over the years, you know, it's been something that, like, until recently, I never actually worked there. But with WWE, I was able to go to Mexico City, Chihuahua, a couple other cities too. Great tour in Mexico. One thing that'll always stand out in my mind about that tour is the last night. We had an outside show. It was pouring rain. MVP and Chris Benoit were in the ring putting on a hell of a match in the pouring rain. I will never, ever forget that. You know, as far as going to Mexico now, you know, that just falls into the category of everything. What I'm doing now, and part of what I need for my own spiritual well-being and rehabilitation inside, you know, is to be away from wrestling. That's really what I need. Since June, since I chose not to resign for WWE, and definitely over the last several months, I've had offers from like 13 or 14 different countries, countries I didn't even know had wrestling in it, you know, and it's all very flattering. And, you know, again, you know, it's really worth a lot for me to leave home because right now this is where it's at. I'm really enjoying my time off, and I'm enjoying working on a lot of other projects and stuff. Part of an indefinite wait is that you just never know how long it's going to take. You know, never say never. Yeah. Never say never, but if you saw me in the ring anytime real soon, I'd be just as surprised as you.
Right. Yeah, but, you know, I respect that, man. I respect. But I tell you what, bro, I know me and plenty other guys, you know, wrestling fans miss you out there, you know, in the ring.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that. And keep watching my boy Sabu.
I will, man. All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Right, dude.
All right. Thanks.
We got another guy here. He's been on hold for a while, so we better get to him. Who is this?
This is Chris from Boston. I'm working with TNA University, and I have a quick question for Rob Van Dam. Any thoughts of going to like TNA in the future, or if so, who would you want to feud with?
You know, when it comes time to where life tells me that it's time to return to wrestling, if that comes to pass, then I would consider anything. I would consider TNA. I would consider WWE, both of whom have expressed interest recently in hopes that I am ready to return, which I'm not. I'm not ready to have that talk yet. When it comes time to it, I would weigh out the lighter, easier schedule of TNA with the prestige of the WWE. I would weigh the exposure the WWE has of putting me on a global brand where the pay-per-views are seen by over 100 countries and where my personal contribution has a huge impact on kids in India and Ireland, and I would weigh all that up against the TNA where although I'm still on television to some extent and I still have a career as a wrestler, I'm now wrestling in a studio in front of maybe 800 people instead of 20,000 people. There'd be a lot of weighing around, and the thing is, it's all business at this point. Love and passion died out a long time ago, so it's all business. This is a job that's way too challenging to do without some passion, some rekindled love, you know, to drive you through. So in the meantime, I'm not ready to consider any of that. But would I when the time comes? Absolutely.
Yeah. I was asking you, maybe it would be different if you were younger and you still. It's kind of like Paul Heyman. A lot of people say, you know, if he could come back with like a new company, but would he still be the same Paul Heyman he was, you know, before he had a family and he was a younger guy?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I started with ECW in January of '96. And I was there till sometime in 2001. And at that point in my career and at that point in my life, it was just something different than now. In my career, I learned to really pull it together, to master the crowd, to become a superstar during those years in ECW. When I first went there, I would go out in front of 200 people and bust my ass wrestling for 30 or 40 minutes because it was so important for me that those 200 people went and they told somebody about me that hadn't heard of me, so they would come back. And at every show I was thinking, wait a second, there could be people that heard about me. You know, now I got to prove myself. And so I always had that pressure, and that's what drove me through. And I always wanted to even challenge myself. I was looking to always outdo myself because that's what ECW was about. And so I was always looking to counter my last move and step it up a notch and become more and more extreme. And really, there was a lot of self-gratification, you know, from being on that path. But yeah, it's totally a different time in my life, different perspectives, different everything. So I can't really imagine, like even if Paul came out, you know, with a new ECW, I can't imagine, you know, that the superstars that he uses now would be the same as the young, hungry, want to be seen, still want to prove themselves talent that he had back then, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Paul's great at balancing everything out, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there'd always be a new crop of young, hungry guys.
Yep, for sure.
Everybody's been asking, you know, where we're going to see Rob Van Dam in the future, but they can see you right now on RobVanDam.com, and they'll also be seeing you at the WrestleFest 2008 It's March 1st in Newark Pavilion in Newark, California, and everybody can check that out at btwrestling.com. And I heard you're also going to be in Charlotte this year at the NWA Legends Fan Fest.
Yes, that's true too. Greg Price, who runs that, is a longtime friend of mine, and my schedule is a little more open right now, so I'm able to help him. I've been wanting to make it out there for the last couple of years, just to try to help him with that show. But of course, the monotonous, never-ending, merciless schedule of the WWE kept me from doing that. So yeah, you can see me there. I'll also be at the WonderCon in San Francisco, February 23rd and 24th, and then I'll be at the Wizard World in Los Angeles. So I'm starting to get out of the house a little bit. Mostly I'm still trying to stay around California with a few exceptions. But that is honestly a little bit of personal growth, because when I got home in June, it took me 6 solid months before I felt comfortable. I always felt like my time was limited here, because normally when I'm home, I'm only home for like 60 hours, and then I got to leave again. And I never wanted to leave, and I didn't want to leave my wife, and so I would try and stay awake during like crazy hours of the night just because I'm happy to be home and I want to enjoy it. But I was so tired, and I'd sleep for 2 days, and I'd kick myself in the ass for not working out when I was home, and there was just this constant pressure and stress. And it really took me a long time to unwind, and I'm seeing and charting and studying these stages that I'm going through and stuff, and it's all good. But yeah, starting to venture out a little bit, do a few autograph signings when the Comic-Con comes to San Diego in July. You can be sure I'll be there too.
Excellent. How are you doing health-wise? Do all little nagging injuries, a lot of those heal up when you took a lot of time off for wrestling?
I find that is a myth. Okay. If I feel great, I feel happy, I feel healthy, I feel terrific. But if I'm waiting for all the little tiny aches and pains to go away, I think I'll be an old man. And a lot of wrestlers who had retired told me in the past that once you stop, that's when you start really hurting, because you're sucking it up while you're doing your job, and once you stop, all arthritis sets in and all that. So that's a different perspective. Then you hear the guys that say, well, when you're off, for a few months, you get all rested up, you feel good. What I find to be true is when it comes to physically, my body, I do feel great. My knee that I had the surgery on, I know that every day my knee lets me know that it's there and that it got operated on. I feel that. Little things, my ankles and wrists, that's stuff that I just deal with, that I always live with. But I feel like I'm in great shape, and where I really feel revived is my energy. I used to never be able to stay awake at home, except for, like I said, since I was 4 or 5, 6 in the morning, I'd be up holding my wife while she's sleeping, just because I don't want it to be taken away from me, and I would panic because I knew how many hours. Once I got off the airplane to come home, the back of my mind starts counting hours till I got to come back to the airport. That was always so stressful. I said, oh no, I got 9 hours till I got to go to the airport, which means, I got to leave my house in 8 hours, or 7.5 hours to get there 30 minutes and flight. I was always doing this math, and it was crappy. So right now, while I'm not doing that, I'm able to relax from that stress. I'm able to achieve a more calm, peaceful, zenful grasp on perspective, which is totally what I'm wanting to do, and it really frees up a lot of energy from distractions so that I can focus, on just being grateful, glad, and being able to enjoy my home and my view and the beautiful weather in California. And this is all the stuff that I always miss when I'm on the road, man.
Mm-hmm. We get a lot of snow here in Massachusetts.
You can keep it. You can keep that snow in Massachusetts. Thank you.
Well, something I actually was wanting to ask you was, I would assume you met Ted DiBiase later on when you got into wrestling. Did the basketball incident ever come up?
Actually, when I when I dribbled that basketball, I was a little black kid. If you really think about it, it was actually
it was the kiss the yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And that did come up recently. Like early in my career, I didn't want to bring that up, and then when I came to WWE, I definitely didn't want to bring it up because I'm thinking these idiot writers are going to think there's some big money from having this big angle of this kid that grew up wanting revenge or something. So I tried to keep that under the hat. I didn't want anybody to know. And then when they interviewed my dad for the behind-the-scenes thing that they did on that Confidential show that before they were superstars, and he mentioned it, you know, I was like, oh, Dad, no, they're going to use that against me. And then I eventually ended up owning it, accepting it, and saying, okay, it happened. I'm in a position right now where they can't use that against me, you know, and you know, and then, yeah, like I said something to him about it one time, you know, and he just kind of like laughed. He remembered, you know, but he wasn't disrespectful or anything like that.
Yeah.
By the way, you can get Officer Brian Keenan to shovel your driveway. He's a friend of mine up there in Massachusetts, freezing his balls off beside you.
Oh, okay. Is he anywhere near Cape Cod?
I don't know. It's all like one big cold state. I think he's near. He's not far from Boston. I think he's closer to. Is it Waltham?
Oh, okay. That's way on the other side of me.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually,
all I remember is the Squire.
The Squire?
Yep.
What's that?
It's a club that I used to go to.
Oh, okay. I live in a quiet little town called Sandwich.
Okay. Oh, and also Reading, where Killer Kowalski had his school, right?
Yeah, I think it's still there.
Reading, and there was another town, too, with an M. Malden, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. Which, actually when I was 18, before I even visited the Sheik, before I met the Sheik, I took a trip out there to Boston and visited Killer Kowalski's school, because that was my only in. I'd been writing and calling everybody, and here was a guy that responded and said, yeah, come check out my school. And I went up there, and he could not have been more gracious. I was just a 180-pound, 18-year-old kid fresh out of high school with skinny little arms, and this guy picked me up from the airport, took me to the hotel, picked me up, took me to the school, worked out with me in his whole class and everything, dropped me back off. I mean, he couldn't have been cooler to me, and I don't even know. He's always been cool later in my career. Like in WWE, he always goes way out of his way to come up and to tell me that he thinks I'm the best, and that, you know, he really appreciates, you know, everything that I do, and he's a big fan of mine and all that. And I always wonder if he puts two and two together and remembers me as that little 18-year-old kid. I've tried to explain that to him, but I really don't know if he understood, because I looked a little different.
Yeah. Have you ever wanted to do that? Like maybe take someone under your wing or train anybody?
There's been times that I have wanted to do that, and of course the wrestling school is always one option that's out on the table, you know. It's not one that I'm really interested in at the moment, you know, in pursuing. You know, it really, it's just, as far as staying away from it goes, first off, I don't ever want to insult the wrestling fans, you know, and say that wrestling is not you know, I don't want to say it's not cool, I don't want to say it's stupid, but for me, I need to be detached from it. I watched UWF, a few minutes of that the other night, and I actually enjoyed it. Yeah, and I was watching it, you know, and I was kind of enjoying it for a minute, and I was realizing, you know, Bruno Sammartino, the legend that he is, especially there in Massachusetts, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, he is like a god of wrestling. Everybody, you know, has nothing but great things to say about him. And he's doing the color commentary, and I'm watching these wrestlers in the ring, and I saw this guy throw the crappiest, just most horrible punch at the other wrestler. It was one punch, and it made me realize how much I don't like the business. and what followed that horrible, crappy punch was Bruno coloring it. And I don't just mean color, I mean pencils, inks, color, balloon. He's like, whoa, did you see that big left-hand knuckle sandwich coming out? That nearly dislocated his jaw. And it was like enlightenment. I just realized I would be dangerous to be in wrestling right now because I couldn't look at it that way, you know, because of my feelings on it right now. I have no business being around it, representing it. I would be the opposite. If I was doing color commentary, I'd be like, oh my God, did you see that horrible drop kick? Didn't this kid go to wrestling school before he was on TV? 1 foot went in the balls, 1 foot in the thigh. That had to have been the worst drop kick I'd ever seen. But look at the guy that sold it. What is he doing?
I'd pay to see that.
Well, yeah, like I was saying, it's not good. It's not good for that business. They need me to be away as much as I need me to be away. And obviously, I can be professional, and I've proven that, from 2001 to recently in the WWE, because the whole time I was looking at it that way, just more and more and more, with a few slight interruptions of hope when they brought ECW around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always talk about ECW on here, and you say, like, the first two pay-per-views did so well, and the DVD did so well, and that was, like, with no, like, build-up, really, just kind of threw it out there. And then, like, a year of WWE TV, and then it was, like, the December to Dismember, and it did, like, so poorly. And that was after a year of, like, WWE pushing, having a weekly TV show. They actually took away, like interest in the product instead of adding interest.
You're absolutely right, and you get no argument from here. December to Dismember was the death of the original ECW. It was, let's kill off these guys that we know the fans want to see, and let's make Bobby Lashley the new representative of this new brand that we're going to introduce to them. It was a special moment, that was pretty hardcore, actually. It really was.
Mm-hmm. What did you think about the match with John Cena at the One Night Stand too?
I really enjoyed the match. It was perfect. I mean, not only had I brought back the hardcore elements that really made me stand out, in my best showcasing, but I used that, to get the world title, because it couldn't have happened any other way. But for me, doing it there in front of those people, that style, that's the way it had to go down. So just everything going into that was perfect. The fans loved and were behind everything that I stood for, and they were 1,000% against everything that he stood for. Yeah. It was a once in a lifetime experience. The match itself, that was completely ECW style. It was like, okay, this is how we do it here. I loved it. I loved the whole thing. With Edge coming in at the end and in the table, that particular moment was a little WWE-esque, because it kind of like stood out from the match and like a sore thumb, but whatever, dude, topple him, get the pin, and move forward.
Yeah, I always give some people hate the guy on the internet, but I always give him a lot of credit because he's supposed to be the main babyface of the company, and some place he's just getting booed out of the arena, but he still goes out there and does the best he can to give the crowd some type of match.
Cena?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's really good at connecting with the people. I mean, most of the women and kids, and maybe it's mostly women and kids when I think about it. But really, a lot of fans really get behind him, and obviously he's a great representative of WWE, because Vince is very proud to have him as the front man and the endorser and the pick to put out there in the public and say, this is what WWE is. I mean, I saw him endorsing so many products a couple years ago, that it was incredible. At the same time, you're in the same business as the person, so you have to look at that, from a personal perspective too, as far as positioning, the possibilities or lack of possibilities and all that too. It was definite. There was definitely a lot of stuff that I knew definitely wasn't going to be coming my way, opportunities and stuff like that. But that's not really what it's about. But it is when you're trying to make it to the top and you're looking at at them saying over and over and over again, no, not that, but this is what we want. Okay, I'll just go out and do my thing then.
When you earlier talked about a lot of politics in wrestling, obviously, and when you at the Elimination Chamber match, when you kind of smashed Triple H's face, did you fear for your career then?
It was more legit. Yes, it was, and that's the only time Vince has ever called me on my cell phone, which was later on to tell me that Triple H was okay after he got carted ambulanced away, to the hospital, because Vince knew that I was very concerned. I really felt bad, because, and,
you guys are, if you get each other's body to each other, you obviously don't want to hurt each other.
Exactly.
Did you have anything, Barb? I think Barbie's still here, isn't he?
Yeah, I've got one of the questions from the message board. I'm having a few throat problems tonight, so I haven't said too much. But Kikutaro fan wants to know...
You gotta take the battery out of that thing before you do that, bro. Oh.
Right.
That's what I heard.
A very similar joke earlier in the show at my expense, so it's a bit touchy. But
yeah, I'm the king.
One of our fans.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
He wants to know: do you still do the Van Dam lift?
You know, I never did that regularly. That was always something to do for a pose. When I taught myself to do the splits, I first was stretching on the floor until I reached a plateau, and I couldn't get my groin all the way down the floor, so I started elevating my feet up on my mom's kitchen chairs. I would hang on to like a broomstick at first for balance, and eventually I could stay there longer and longer, and I was increasing my flexibility. Soon I was at the gym at the Y Center showing off by laying a couple of benches beside each other, jumping up as high as I could, and then landing in a split and trying to balance. I remember one of the weightlifters looking at me like I was an idiot, saying, "Why do you do that? I mean, if there was a reason for it, I'd understand, but you're just going to blow your knees out." And then pretty soon, you know, when it came time to start taking promotional photos, you know, I was like, "Hey, well, I got this thing I do where I do the splits, you know, levitated, and I would hold some weight, and the weight got heavier as I got bigger and stronger, and pretty soon, damn, that looks pretty impressive, holding that 110-pound dumbbell while I'm doing the splits." So eventually I got the lift officiated by the United States All-Around Weightlifters Association. I pulled up 166.5 pounds. And it's not just holding the weight. Thing is, when you try and jerk that weight off the ground while your legs are, you know, split across a couple benches, there's no foundation for you to count on. It's just your groin going straight across. So you have to have the perfect balance to counter to pick that up so you don't land on your face. You got to have balance. You got to have obvious flexibility, and you got to have strength to even lift that. It's something. If we do a photo shoot, I pull it out once in a while. And it's always been that way. It's something I hope to work at someday if I was challenged for my record, but I never was.
Right. The Big Tiny, he wants to know if the WWE ever wanted you to cut your hair.
I don't remember that ever coming up.
Okay. Something I always want to know was, like, your airbrush tights, were they inspired by Rick Rude, or is this something you liked?
It was. I don't think.
Airbrush.
I didn't really ever think of Rick Rude. It was. I'll tell you, there is a story to that. My main money was in All Japan Pro Wrestling at the time. This was like 93, 94. I know that I've got a job there as long as I want it. Giant Baba loves me. He wants me to come back as often as I want to be there. But there's something he doesn't like about my look. I just got these like a black singlet. And my body at the time, you know, wasn't as developed or anything. And Baba said, "You know what? I want you to wear trunks next tour." I was like, "Baba, no." And boots, because I used to wrestle barefoot. I used to think that made me look tougher doing flips out to the floor and fighting in the crowd bare feet, you know. Actually, I broke my foot one time in a match with Pez Watley trying to be tough with bare feet. Pistol Pez. So anyway, Baba has me come back with trunks, red trunks, and boots, which were boxing boots, for one tour, and I looked goofy. I looked so ridiculous that after this short 2-week tour, which, you know, if you're lucky you can find pictures of that would have been in 94, I think. After that short tour, he says, "Okay, next time you come back, maybe go back to singlet." He said, "But find something, you know, maybe brighter colors or something, you know, to decorate it up." And so I'm thinking, okay, he's thinking of like the Rockers or something. I'm going to wear these fruity, you know, pink and light blue and light green flags hanging from me. I'm not going to do that. And I saw this guy at a flea market in Savannah, Georgia, at a stand that He airbrushed motorcycle helmets and license plates and boats and gas tanks and all kinds of stuff. He had all these albums to go through and see his work. And his name was Joe Holland. And I said, "Joe, can you airbrush a wrestling outfit?" And I told him what I had in mind. And I had the design in mind. It was pretty simple. It was a silhouette of me doing a flying sidekick. and I wanted to be at the end of a lightning bolt, so it looks like I'm flying across, and I had this idea, and aerial assault, because that was a tag team that I was doing in Las Vegas at the time, and I could use that there while I was going to Japan, back and forth. Anyway, he said, sure, I'll try it, and he airbrushed it. I think that was in '94. The same guy's been doing all my outfits since then, and he just always stepped it up. He always stepped it up and would come up with more and more creative. I hardly ever had any ideas after the first few. He would just come up with all this outrageous stuff and mail it to me. I'd say, Joe, this kicks ass. I can't wait to wear it on TV. Now, while I'm not making new outfits and stuff, he has created my two new Rob Van Dam T-shirts that you can see at robvandam.com. One is an RVD TV shirt. The other one is Find Your Center of Balance at RVD's Dojo, which is a picture of the Van Dam lift, by the way, on that T-shirt. So check those out, man. They're made by Joe Holland, and they're awesome.
Oh, excellent. I'm a big fan of the airbrush stuff. And next week's my birthday.
You know what's funny? Let me just get this out, too. I've never said this in an interview, but this is some of the ridiculousness I put up with in WWE. When I first got there in 2001, Michael Hayes says, well, yeah, we like your wrestling, but the tie-dye confuses us. It makes us think of the 80s. Tie-dye. He thought I was wearing tie-dye.
Right.
Michael Hayes, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
Yeah. He's really up to date whenever you'd see him on TV in his ring attire, or his, whatever he was wearing.
But anyway.
Yeah.
One of the many things that came down to me from the agents that I ignored. Don't look at the people. Don't look at the fans. We don't do that here. I say, oh, okay. I go out to the ring, turn to the crowd. Rob Van Dam. Eventually, they quit telling me not to look at the crowd.
Someone sent in a question about the wellness policy, and do you think it's good for wrestling, or do you think it should be left up to the individuals?
That's a fair question, because from a perspective of being the independent contractor that's going there to work, especially signing a contract that didn't have the wellness program, didn't have the dress code, and had been amended so many times since I signed it, I thought that all of it, was really asking a lot from us. The wellness program in WWE is the first drug testing I've ever had to take, and I felt like it was pretty violating for them to go inside my body and take my urine and then tell me if they're cool with what I have in my body. I'm responsible. I know how to take care of myself, and I don't need somebody, looking out for me in that way. At the same time, there's a lot of wrestlers that aren't responsible and that will surely die if somebody doesn't do something, to dissuade them from the road that they're going on. The wellness program is one way of finding those individuals with problems, because they walk around not having a clue that taking 2 months worth of pills in one day is going to kill them. And, I think that it is an option. I think also, just having role models and having the climate change like it has and will continue to do so is also a good idea. Back in the 80s, it was all about partying. When came to WWE and the NWO came in, those guys stood out like a sore thumb, because it was now a professional company with all these businessmen, and here these guys come in like it's still the 80s, stumbling around the dressing room. They didn't last long, and I wasn't surprised, because they really stood out. Congress is investigating wrestling, so really there's no choice in the WWE right now, from my understanding. I'm just glad that they're investigating all of wrestling and not just WWE, because they have blurred the line between Vince's wrestlers and wrestling. The fact is, most wrestlers don't work for WWE. Most wrestlers aren't at the top, Mm-hmm. Is it a good thing overall? I don't know. It definitely makes the job extremely challenging, because the demands of the job, of the traveling, the performing, the keeping the shape, trying to keep your workouts, trying to do that without anything, to help you sleep, or to help you with pain, or to help you wake up, or to help you with your drive, or to help you recuperate. Basically, I think that in society overall, I think that it's wrong. Within a job, then I think it's probably appropriate. It's a compromise that we make. I never had a problem giving them my urine, even though I felt like it was violating. I think that really it's something that a lot of jobs do. You know, they require drug tests from their employees. In this particular case, we're not employees. We're independent contractors that you know, weren't getting drug tested for years before we came in. So it's a little gray area. Is it a good idea? I guess right now with Congress breathing down their necks, it's a damn good idea to look like they're doing something. It is legit too, by the way. I mean, you really are peeing in a cup and handing it to them. There are ways around the test that, unfortunately, you know, for the test, a lot of athletes know how to do. But
that's not just in wrestling. That's
that's everywhere. You know, but overall, I think the society tries to push everybody towards cigarettes and alcohol. Cigarettes and alcohol. That's what it's all about. That's where they make billions and billions of dollars, and that's why they prohibited marijuana, and that's why they want drugs to stay outlawed. You know, alcohol used to be illegal, you know, back until 1934, and they turned that around, and now people think that's ridiculous. They think that would be ridiculous. They can't imagine that, like, back in 1934, marijuana was the only legal drug we had in the country, and now it's all changed around, and it's based on political agendas. People don't realize that, but it's all about what the government can make their money from.
Right. It's not based off what's worse for society, because people don't smoke marijuana and beat their kids or.
Not to mention, I mean, if you want to talk about just facts, there are 0 cases reported in any medical journals of lethal overdoses of marijuana. You can overdose from anything. In fact, cigarettes kill 1 in 5 Americans every year. And I'm not saying 1 in 5 smokers. I'm saying 1 in 5 Americans. Over 450,000 Americans a year die as a direct result from tobacco smoke. Nicotine is one of the most addictive drugs we've ever known, but yet it's not only accepted, it's pushed on society. It's pushed on people. You're almost expected to smoke, you know, to be cool, and that, to me, is crazy. I don't want to take anybody's rights away to smoke cigarettes, but if we are going to outlaw something, shouldn't we go for something like that instead of a harmless weed that grows in fields that basically has a purpose, unlike cigarettes? I divide it into 3 categories, the argument on marijuana. There's recreational, there's medicinal, and then there's material. Over 25,000 products can be made from hemp, which doesn't even have THC. We can run cars on hemp seed oil, cars that are made of hemp fibers. Henry Ford did that. People don't know about that. The medicinal values, we got 12 states that have legalized it with a doctor's recommendation right now. We got 5 more on the way. People don't see the movements that are being made, and it's all because logic eventually, I think, has to take over greed and evil agendas. I truly believe that. The drug testing overall, I'll tell you what I think is a better idea, you know, because we started the wellness program after Eddie Guerrero died of heart disease and an enlarged heart. How about we measure the boys' hearts? That's one of the first things I did after Eddie died. I went to the doctor. I got checked for heart disease. I got all my blood levels checked on my own. I had my heart measured, you know, because I wanted to know. A lot of wrestlers die of enlarged hearts. But people think, because of the media's distortion, people think that wrestlers are all hooked on all these drugs and that they take steroids and it kills them. Magazine recently did a story reporting like 66 wrestlers that died under the age of 44. Did you happen to see that story?
No, I didn't see that. But, you know, I've heard similar things.
Well, of course you have. But what you might not have noticed, and what I noticed, was there was only 3 cases where they actually mentioned steroids. One of them mentioning steroid as GHB, which of course GHB is not a steroid. So now we're talking about 2. But anyway, 2 to 3 cases out of 66 linked to steroids. But the people don't think that. They think that all 66 of them died from steroids. And let's look at the facts and let's really look at it. So I think the wellness program shouldn't only have all these substances, many substances which are actually over the counter, like ephedrine. You can take ephedrine. You can get it at any gas station, but a WWE wrestler cannot because it's on the banned list. You know, some of that, it's very extensive, and at the same time, why don't they measure the boys' hearts, which is the most common killer? And that's also, by the way, common with people who aren't wrestlers. They die of an enlarged heart. We all know people that have that. And it's also referred to as an athlete's heart. You know, just from athletes, it's common to have enlarged hearts, you know. How about we do that? How about we check out their blood levels and we see what's really going on inside of people's bodies instead of just coming up with a list of medicines that could be used appropriately or could be abused at the same time.
Overall health, not just, whatever they might be taking.
Well, of course, and when it comes to whatever they're taking, I'm a firm believer in appropriate usage of modern medicine. Before we invented penicillin, we were lucky to live to be 30 years old. So now if the doctor recommends to you that taking, 10 milligrams of hydrocodone can help your quality of life because you have chronic pain, then why the hell not take it? Just because it can be addictive is not a good enough reason for me. You know, there are abusers, but there's also appropriate use, and I'm a firm believer in that.
I wanted something you said earlier is about an independent contractor. I just want to know what you thought about that term, since if you're with WWE, you're considered an independent contractor, yet you can't be like working for other companies.
Well, the thing about that is that we all agree to it, so we can't bitch about it. You know, are the conditions stacked up against us? Absolutely. Are the conditions such that a lot of people would consider it unfair and advantageous only to the guy that you're working with? Absolutely. But at the same time, we agree to it. If you hire an independent contractor to come and fix your air conditioner in your house, and when you sign the contract, you sign something, or you have the contractor sign something that says he's not going to work on any other air conditioners until he's done with yours. You get to keep any ideas that come about. You get to have his firstborn child, but he agrees to it and signs it and says that's fine. Then, that's all part of the deal that you make. People bitch about health insurance. Look, would I rather have health insurance as a contracted wrestler, or would I rather get paid more and then be able to go on my own?
Right.
For me, that's a pretty easy one to answer.
Well, we had you for an hour and a half. I hear the phone, and you probably should wrap this up. We want to thank you for coming on tonight.
Okay, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we didn't get to a lot of the message board questions, but
well, then
sorry,
let's do it again. Let's do it again sometime.
That sounds good to me.
Appreciate you helping me get the word out on RVD TV at robvandam.com. Go there, check out the the trailer, 3-minute free trailer. I also posted the previews up at YouTube. A lot of people like YouTube. And if you go to YouTube/RVDTV420, you get to see all the previews that I have, even of some episodes that aren't even going to come out for a couple weeks. So check that out, too.
Excellent. Thanks for coming on. Everybody check out robvandam.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the very unpredictable Matt Hardy, and you're listening to InYourHeadOnline.com. Be prepared, because like Matt Hardy, In Your Head is very unpredictable.